what's your relationship with your parents worth to you? If I forced you to give an answer to this, what would you say? Is it worth $5,000? Is it worth $10,000? If I gave you $50,000 in exchange for your relationship with your parents, what would you say? If you've got any kind of connection and a relationship with them worth having, I'm hoping you'd say, it's priceless, Camille, and no amount of money is worth ruining my relationship with my parents. And yet, this is what way too many engaged couples wrestle with in the process of planning their wedding. Maybe your parents have offered to help you pay for your wedding, which at first felt like a weight off your shoulders and an incredible opportunity to book in some things that you might have thought would be totally out of your budget. And then gradually, within a few weeks or months, the all too frequently heard story is that it can suddenly feel like they want to have input into and or take over and plan the entire thing. They've become controlling, maybe overbearing, and it puts a real stress on your relationship. This episode was inspired by a real future mother of the bride and Unbridely Podcast listener who reached out to me about her own daughter's wedding. The mum left me a voice message because she was wondering how to broach the topic of offering money to help pay for her daughter's wedding and how to make sure that it came across to the soon-to-be-weds as helpful and thoughtful and intentional and not controlling or just throwing cash at them. She wants her contribution to be valued and meaningful to both her and her daughter and her future son-in-law. And of course, as an Unbridely Podcast listener, she is completely aware that money given by parents towards wedding costs can sometimes come with seriously complicated strings attached. Because we've all heard the stories, right? The parents offer to chip in, and before you know it, they're suggesting, or let's be real, basically demanding who should be invited, what photography you should choose, or which dress you should wear. So today I'm going to share a few insights on how I think it's best to work through this potential minefield of emotions, power, money, and expectations. How do you accept help from your parents without feeling like you're losing control of your own wedding? How do you keep your relationship solid while still staying true to what you and your fiancé want? You're going to learn some real practical strategies for setting boundaries, having those awkward conversations, and making sure your wedding stays your wedding. Plus, I want to share with you how my parents contributed to our wedding and how it made our wedding day and general relationship with them even stronger. So grab a coffee, take a breath, and let's talk about keeping your sanity and your relationships intact while planning your big day. Let's get stuck into it.
Unbridely is a community of pro-wedding vendors who believe in freedom and integrity in weddings, giving you options, solutions, tips and tricks to create the experience and memories that you and your fiancé really want and deserve. Because we believe that weddings are a team sport. With how-tos, stories and interviews with recently married couples, we find out what went right and what they'd change if they could go back and do it all over again. I'm Camille, and welcome to the Unbridely Podcast.
What you've got to be able to appreciate and understand from the outset is that your parents think that they're helping, even when it's clear to everyone else involved that they're not really. So number one is understanding the parental contribution dynamics. So when parents offer financial help to their kids for their wedding, it is rarely just about the money. The offer of help is about love, tradition, and their deep emotional investment in one of your most significant life moments. Because parents see their child's wedding as more than just one day. For them, it's a generational milestone, and it can sometimes be a chance to showcase their family, and often a way to express love and pride. So when they offer money, they're not just writing a check. They're trying to be part of your wedding planning journey, if you like. I want you to really hold on to this because most parents don't wake up thinking, how can I make my child's wedding miserable? Instead, they are genuinely believing that their input monetarily and advice and, everything else that they try to do, that it's helpful. For many of them, they've been planning this moment in their minds for years and years. So every suggestion about your guest list, who's invited, the venue you choose, or the outfit that you want to wear, they think it's a gift to you and not an invasion of your privacy. Them offering help and offering advice, in their minds, it's like reaching out to be a part of everything you're experiencing. And so you wonder how, from such great intentions, it all falls apart. And there's the power dynamics that goes on too, because money creates a complicated power balance. Any person paying for something, anything at all, like take it away from weddings, you're paying for something, you feel entitled to have a say about what you get in return. It's human nature. But here's the crucial thing. Your wedding isn't a transaction. It's a celebration of your love and your new family. And depending on your culture, where you're born, your parents' expectations of how tradition is going to play a part in your wedding, your marriage and your life and what religion you are or your lack of religion, and whether or not you hold your parents' values close to your heart, you might absolutely want and believe that your wedding needs to be a family celebration, that it's a community event, that it's to be shared far and wide. And if that's the case, bloody well done. You're on the same page as your parents. Off you go then. Have a ball. But for many couples, it's expected that a wedding is about their new life, their choices, together with decisions for what kind of family they want to begin. And this is where a lot of the conflict can sprout from. Let's talk about the real cost here. Like I said in my intro at the start, the true price of parental interference isn't monetary. The gift of money has the potential to damage your relationship. Have you ever heard of the saying, never lend money to friends? It's not because friends are untrustworthy or that there's any problem in helping a friend when they need you, but the issue is similar to parents offering to contribute towards your wedding. Lending money to someone, anyone, changes the power dynamics of that relationship. And even if you say, it won't, resentment can really quickly build when you feel like your plans are being steamrolled by well-intentioned but misguided help, in inverted commas. Let's explore how to get through these murky waters without burning bridges or compromising on your wedding vision. So there needs to be a chat where you share your ideas and your parents share theirs. But before you get into that, you need to work out exactly what you want first. You need to be crystal clear together with your fiancé. What do you want and what do you need? Are you willing to accept a gift or a loan? Because they're very, very different, of course. A gift of a certain amount of money towards your wedding, implies that there are no strings attached. Of course, we know better than that, but it implies that. A loan, of course, well, they've got terms and conditions that, your parents might lend you a certain amount to be able to be used towards your wedding on the understanding and the proviso that you're paying them back a certain amount over a certain length of time. And there are more questions. You need to know, do you want their money to cover specific items for your wedding, or do you want it to be spread across the budget of your entire wedding, like as a whole? Now, if I go back over 10 years now, my parents spoke with us about contributing towards our wedding at different times, and I can tell you right now that I didn't take this advice I'm giving you. And it meant that there was some tension along the way. But what my dad ended up doing was paying for the accommodation for him and his kids, so me and my brothers and their partners, to stay at the hotel where we got married. And it meant that I was surrounded by my stinky brothers the whole day. And it was one of the best parts of our wedding. We chose not to have a wedding party, so, no bridesmaids, groomsmen, all that sort of stuff. So if my family weren't there, I can imagine I probably would have been feeling a bit lost, maybe, possibly even lonely. But the whole day, as I was getting ready at the hotel and photos and things like that, it felt so alive, so ridiculous and raucous and fun. And it made the day feel like home to me. I was very, very comfortable. My dad's contribution was not just amazing monetarily, but also my memories now, 10 years on, I'm so grateful for him contributing that particular thing to our wedding day because it means a lot. That day and that night and those times, they mean a lot to me now. Now, my mum and dad, they're divorced. They've been divorced for a long time. And so it was a separate conversation with both. My mum said that she couldn't contribute a lot, completely understand, didn't really expect it, but she wanted to give us money towards something that would make us happy, she said. And I jokingly replied, well, that would be chocolate. And I loved the idea of having miniature, square, fondant-covered wedding chocolate mud cakes for every single guest, like little individual ones. So while a lot of people don't love the taste of fondant, I adore it. And I always ask for like the corner piece of a cake, like a square cake, so I get more fondant. And that style cost a fair whack of money because, even now when I think about it, the time and effort that had to go into them to, make all those cakes and to, do the ganache and do the buttercream on the outside and then individual fondant for all of the different cakes. Ended up there were 3 different colours as well, 3 different flavours of different types of mud cake. There was a lot to them. We thought it was a great idea. We loved the idea that everyone got an individual dessert. But yeah, it wasn't within our budget. So Mum said that she'd pay for them. And they were the most dense and oh so chocolatey, like little delights. And we could have never had them without Mum's help. So there alone are 2 very different ways that my parents helped with our wedding, but they're equally special and memorable to us in their own way. You can't compare the prices of both, but the memories stick with us. And so that's what I mean by a meaningful contribution. Now, for my Unbridely podcast listening mum who reached out, after I listened to your voice message, I think I got a sense that you might already have a couple of ideas of ways you might be able to give your daughter money towards something meaningful and memorable, like you said. So I would suggest writing them down and having your daughter and her fiancé maybe write 2 or 3 ideas down too, and then see if you can come up with a compromise that makes you both feel excited and valued. And the other thing that you need to work out before you have this conversation with your parents, how much are you comfortable accepting? I don't know about you, but I've got this threshold where it's like, a couple of thousand is okay. If someone came to me and went, yeah, I want to give you, I don't know, I guess 10. 10 sounds big. 10 sounds like a lot of money. $10,000 would be like, whoa, gosh, what do I got to do for that? First thought that goes through my head. You need to know right up front, you and your fiancé, and you need to work out what the middle ground there is for you both. How much are you comfortable accepting? And then when would you need the money? Because you might need it before you book things, or it might be during the planning stages, or it might even be after the wedding. And then as a final safeguard, you and your fiancé need to identify what your non-negotiables are, the things that you won't compromise on, your line, your final line. So you need to get crystal clear on what aspects of your wedding are absolute must-haves for you. Maybe it's the venue. It might be certain people on the guest list. It might just be the overall vibe. Whatever it is, these are your hills to die on, so to speak. This is when you go, we really appreciate you offering, but this is extremely important to us to keep it this way. Thank you. And an extra pro tip here, if your parents become too controlling, if they're stepping over that line that you drew, you also need to be prepared to fund the wedding yourself if you want to maintain complete autonomy. Now, that can be scary too, saying no thanks for the money. But please keep that in the back of your mind as you're booking things, as you're looking at the prices, and don't leave yourself short, because it's better to remain true to what you really want, especially, you're just about to become a married couple and make a million decisions together. Be solid on this. Be solid on this. Stick together and go through with what you said you're going to go through with. Now, when it comes down to this awkward meeting, I just want you to know, no one's comfortable doing this. I know it feels to a lot of people like sickly, like you can feel sick to the stomach thinking about it. It can bring up a lot of anxiety for people depending on their emotional relationship with money. A lot of power struggles can come to the surface between parents and their children when they're having this conversation. It's very much a point in time where you're truly asserting yourself to your parents. And this meeting deserves respect from both sides. So the number one thing is to start early. The moment you begin thinking about accepting money from your parents for your wedding, that's when you need to have the talk. Don't wait until they've already transferred funds, or they've started making plans, or they've given you the list of, friends of theirs that you haven't seen in 15 years, wanting to add them to the guest list. You need to get onto this early before any misunderstandings have taken place. You still haven't written your vows yet, have you? Let me help. In around 20 minutes or so, you can easily write personalised wedding vows unlike anything you've heard before, that will make your fiancé feel like the most loved, understood and appreciated person on the planet. The How to Write Wedding Vows That Don't Suck instant download 17-page PDF ebook walks you through a step-by-step format for your vows, how to find the right words and phrases to describe your feelings and your fiancé, how to write that crucial first draft, and create your final wedding vows masterpiece. So if you don't know how or even where to start, if you've been Googling your little heart out, or if you've been calling them wedding vows, AEIOU, this ebook is for you. Included in there are also some bonus secrets for getting the most out of your wedding ceremony. So make sure you download your copy right now and get Write Your Wedding Vows crossed off your to-do list today. The link is in the show notes. Know that face-to-face is best. Believe me, I know how tempting it is to hide behind some texts or some emails, and especially if you hide from conflict. But trust me, this is a face-to-face conversation, because then this allows for the nuance, the tone, and the clarification of any bits that either of you don't get immediately. You get to really be crystal clear about what you're both saying, and plus it shows respect for the importance of the topic. Choosing the right place to have this meeting is, again, it's important. If you can choose a neutral, really calm environment, maybe over a casual lunch or just a coffee, the goal here is to create an atmosphere in which everyone feels equal and comfortable. So no one feels like they are put upon or coerced into things. You want to be able to think clearly, and you also want to be able to step away to have a think or have a chat with your fiancé if you need to. So now you've got the place, you've got what you want. Your parents hopefully have what they want written down as well. So now we've got to get down to the nitty-gritty of what you need to discuss with them. Above all else, please, it's in your best interests to communicate clearly and lovingly. So when you're ready to chat with your parents, make sure you approach that conversation with love and respect and express your gratitude first. Remember, they're probably coming from a good place, even if their ideas don't align with yours. Saying something like, "Mum, Dad, we are so grateful for your help. We want to share our vision with you and talk about how we can make this work for everyone." It might not sound that formal, it might be much more casual, but you lead with love, bit of gratitude. How can we work together? Make sure your parents know how much you appreciate their offer, whatever it might be, because a heartfelt thank you right up front goes a long way in softening what could be a bit of a tough conversation. So then once you're all comfy, you've set the tone, you want to be clear about your vision. You're going to share your wedding plans with your parents, help them see and feel excited about what you both want, what you're planning, what you're aiming for. And then, as with anyone, when you're discussing things with people, they're much more likely to support it rather than try to change it. Once you've talked about what you're wanting and your vision, then you can ask about their expectations. This is a crucial step that many couples miss. So take a sec, ask your parents what their expectations are. They might surprise you because some parents genuinely just want to help with no strings attached, whereas others might have specific hopes or wishes that they've never actually verbalized. A lot of people, and I've said this many a time, when you say the word wedding, every person gets a vision in their head of what they believe a good wedding is. And every one of them is different. So knowing where they stand helps you to address any concerns proactively, and you get to see where you're very different in your approach and where you can match up in what your vision is and what they had hoped. And then when you're talking about your wedding decisions, use the term we, inverted commas, WE, meaning yourself and your fiancé, because this also subtly reinforces that the primary decision makers about this whole thing are the two of you. So use we statements. When you're discussing your boundaries, you want to be specific. So based on their expectations and your comfort level, you want to establish clear boundaries. Don't be vague. This is not the time. If you don't want input on the guest list, for example, please say so. Maybe you're okay with them suggesting certain wedding vendors, but you want the final say. Or perhaps you're happy to consider their guest list additions, but within a set limit, a certain number. Sure, you can have an extra 6, 10, whatever it is. Make it explicit. Say it out loud. So instead of saying, we want to make our own decisions, maybe try something like, we've decided on our guest list and we'd love your input on the seating arrangements. So this gives your parents a way to be involved without overstepping. And then, of course, just like any negotiation, you're going to be revisiting and adjusting the boundaries as you go. You probably haven't done this before, and boundaries aren't set in stone. So as you're going through the planning process, you might find some areas where you're more flexible than you thought you'd be, or others where you need to be firmer, and you can feel it. You can feel it in your body, in your stomach usually, when things are slipping away from you. And that's okay. You need to keep the conversation ongoing, because setting boundaries isn't about building walls. It's like creating a framework where everyone feels respected and heard. Your parents love you and obviously want to be part of your special day. So with clear and kind communication, you can make sure that their involvement enhances rather than overshadows your wedding vision. And then here's the tough bit. Those strings that were attached to the money? You need to bring it up. They are the elephant in the room. This is the big one, mate. You need to have an honest conversation about what, if any, expectations come with their money. Does their contribution mean they get to invite extra guests? Do they expect to be involved in the wedding styling? in the wedding colour palette, in choosing vendors. You need to get it out in the open right now, right at the start. And when it comes to that, once you know what their expectations are, you know the amount of money, you know where they want the money to go towards, you know whether or not it's a gift or a loan, you need to be prepared to say no. This is, I think, the toughest bit, but very important. If the strings attached to the money compromise your vision too much, be ready to politely decline. Remember, it's better to have a smaller, more affordable wedding that you love than a bigger or a more elaborate one that you resent. And then you're going to write it down. I know it feels weird to treat your parents like business partners, but having a simple written agreement can save so much stress later. It doesn't even have to be formal. Just a friendly email summarising your discussion and key points can work wonders for everyone's memory, and it's a reference point then if questions come up later. Because I've seen this. I've heard about this with couples of mine. I've seen it on wedding forums. The one that sticks in my mind is a mum offered to pay for the wedding dress, came shopping with the bride for the wedding dress. They arranged to get it altered. And then when it came time to pay, the mum just never paid. And it was down to, I think, 2 weeks out from the wedding. And the bridal store is going, we're not giving this to you without payment. And the bride's going, Mum. And it was just it was a horrible situation. Just that clear communication. How much is it? When is it going to be given? Is it a gift or a loan? Just the simplest things, just bullet points even. The goal is to keep everyone feeling heard, respected, and excited about sharing in your big day. And so, are you okay? I know it's so uncomfortable. But no one talks about this. It's so important. If you've never had these sort of negotiations before, how would you bloody well know? And this is quite possibly one of the most important relationships of your life with your parents. You don't want to fuck it up. So some final thoughts about this discussion and accepting financial help. As I was saying, keep your communication open because financial discussions can be uncomfortable, but they shouldn't be a one and done deal. You need to keep those lines of communication open throughout the process. As I said, sometimes there's little changes, little regular check-ins as well. They can prevent misunderstandings and keep everyone feeling involved, respected. The goal here isn't to treat your parents' contribution like a business transaction, but it is about creating clarity and mutual understanding so that their generous gift enhances your wedding experience. Remember that, rather than complicating it. With clear expectations, you can focus on what really matters, celebrating your love, starting your new life together. Something else to keep in mind is to offer alternatives. So if there's an area that you don't want parental input into, try to offer another way for them to be involved. So we've chosen our photographer, but we'd love your help in creating a shot list of must-have family photos. Would really love to get that together. Can you give us a hand? Another smart tactic in negotiating is using the yes and technique. So when you get asked a question or a suggestion that you're not that thrilled about, you're not keen on, you want to go, the answer in your head is fuck no. Try the yes and approach. Yes, that's an interesting idea for centerpieces. And we're thinking of going in this direction because it fits our overall theme better. It's not a yes, but it's a yes and. There's an agreement there. It means that you're not constantly negating the suggestions that they make. You take them on board and you redirect. Practicing active listening is really important too, because this isn't about just stating your case. As you know, it's better to listen to your parents' thoughts and feelings, repeat back what you've heard, make sure that you're on the same page. And this again shows respect and can help prevent misunderstandings. And over and above active listening, of course, sometimes there are the words that are said, and then sometimes it's how they're being said. You know, you can suss out, this is why it needs to be face-to-face, right? You can suss out their body language and their tone and see whether they might just be saying what you want to hear, even though it makes them sad. So dig a little deeper, practice the active listening and repeat back what you think they're saying. You might need as well to be prepared to compromise sometimes. Pick your battles though. If your parents are really set on inviting their old college friends and it doesn't majorly impact your day, it might be worth compromising on that. So save your firm no's for the things that truly matter to you. As I said, work out what hill you want to die on and stick with it. Keep your boundaries. This one's a bit fun, but it can be super helpful as well. You might want a code word. So if you have a code word or a phrase with your partner that signals when you need to step away from a conversation with the parents, you might need to regroup. You might need to just cut it a little bit short. It can help prevent heated moments and let you think through what they've said, work through it together, away from them and come back and be positive and suggest creative ways of both getting what you want. So the key principles I'd love you to keep in mind are, number one, remember this bloody wedding is ultimately about you and your partner. Number two, approach these conversations with empathy and kindness. Number three, be firm but loving in your communication. And number four, prioritize your relationship with your parents over any specific wedding details, because they won't be important in the end. But your parents' relationship, I really hope it's important to you for many, many years to come. What do you think? Can you have this conversation with your parents? Is it too much? Will you just go, no, thank you, and head out and elope? What's the hardest part? Is it accepting the money? Is it negotiating? Is it letting them in a little bit? Sometimes that give and take can mean a lot of emotional energy and brain power to achieve. Let me know how you're approaching it. You can DM me on Instagram @Unbridely or email me hello@unbridely.com, and I'll be right here having a chat with you again next week. See you soon. That about wraps it up for this episode of the Unbridely Podcast. For the links and resources we mentioned, please head to the show notes. And if you love the show, please review and subscribe on the podcast platform you're on now so you don't miss out on a single episode. Thanks so much for listening. And remember, weddings are a team sport. Catch you soon.